Hi, kids. To start off with, I just want to make sure you have your We the People book and that you have a pencil. In a minute, I'm going to get a piece of paper too, so if you have that handy, that'd be great. But if you don't, that's okay for now. Once you get your We the People book out, you're going to turn to this page. It's page 10. And on page 10, there's a couple questions that we're going to work through because I've looked at the lessons that they have, and at school, it's would be easy to split up and do these things, but when we're all separated, I don't want things to get too confusing for you. So we're going to try a variety of things, and we'll kind of capitalize or catch the things that work well, and we'll go from there. So on this page, I want you to go down to where it says close reading, use text evidence. I'm going to zoom in there for a second, and then I'm going to bring you to another page, and we're going to talk about the question. So for right now, we're going to focus on question number 1. It says, look back at paragraph 2 of Election Day. Summarize what people do when they arrive at the polls. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring you back to that page, but we're going to keep this in mind. It says, summarize what people do when they arrive at the polls. Okay, so we can do a couple things, but somehow we have to remember that. I'm just going to write it down. You don't have to because we'll have a little post-it note that goes with us. But when you're doing this kind of thing inside your book, it's going to be easier if you take a few notes. Summarize what people do at polls. And when I do stuff like this, kids, I don't write everything down because that's going to take me too long. So I just write down part of it, and that should be enough to jog my memory. But what we do have to talk about briefly is, what does this word summarize mean? So I'm just going to tell you, when we summarize things, what we're looking to do is take a big paragraph and shrink it down into 2-3 sentences at most. If we can get one out of it, that's fine, but most of the time it's going to be 2 or 3. So now that I know what I need to do, summarize what people do when they arrive at the polls, and I know it's in paragraph 2 of Election Day, I'm going to go back to the Election Day story, but I'm going to take this post-it note with me so I don't forget what I need to do. All right, so here's my Election Day story. And I know I'm focused in on paragraph 2, so I'll zoom that in for you. You can see I have my post-it over here for what I need to do also. We'll get to all these things in a minute. And again, you don't have to have this post-it note. You should just be open to paragraph 2 of the story Election Day, because that's what our question focuses on. Once I get back to once I get everything zoomed in and I'm focused on my paragraph, I'm going to read it again just to refresh my memory. On Election Day, people vote in special places called polls. A school or community center might be used as a polling place. At the poll, voters receive a ballot. The ballot lists the candidates. For each office, the voters choose from the list. Then they cast a vote in private. Sometimes voters go into voting booths. Sometimes they put their filled-in ballot into a machine. So that was a lot of information, and what I want to do is just take out the important pieces and just create 1 or 2 sentences. So I'm going to go get a piece of paper, and we'll talk our way through this, how I would do it, and I'm going to have you write down your version of your summary onto the paper as well. So to have you do this, what I'm going to tell you again is a summary is taking all of this and making 1, 2, or 3 sentences. We'll say 2 to 3. 2 to 3 sentences is what you'll need. And to do that, I have to pick out some things that I think are important. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide, if I'm summarizing something, I want to know who is involved. I want to know where. it's taking place. I want to know what's happening. I'm not going to focus so much on the why, but if I can include when it's happening, that's good too. So these are my main questions: who, where, what, when, sometimes why, and sometimes how. So when I summarize, that's what I use. I use these 6 questions to make 2 or 3 sentences. So when I go through my story, on election day, people vote in special places called polls. That gives me a lot of information right there. It tells me who. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to just kind of mark up my page here because I can take notes wherever I want. So who is involved is the people. Okay. Where does it take place? In special places called polls. Could be a school or community. All of that connects together as a polling place. So I know it's polls. That's where they do it. And I know it could be at a school or community. So I'm going to put my where right here. You don't have to do it that way if you don't want to, but that's where I know I'm going to find it. What are they doing? Well, they're receiving a ballot. The ballot has the candidates on it. For each office, the voters choose from the list. Then they cast a vote in private. Sometimes voters go into voting booths. All of this stuff is decent information, but I don't need that for a summary because I want to know who, where, when. This is telling me the how, and like I said, we're not going to focus so much on the how for our summary. So, and we're not going to focus too much on the why, because in our summary, we may as well just take our paragraph and rewrite it over here, and we don't want to do that. So I know who, I know where. What about when? Well, on election day, that's what tells me when. So I'm just going to make a little note there, and then I'm going to ask what. What is right here? They vote. So it's not super hard to find, but it can be tricky if you don't know what you're looking for. So again, when we're summarizing, we're looking for who, where, and when for sure. Sometimes what, and not so often why or how. Okay. So we have all those labeled, and we do have what in there, but that's okay. So now I got to figure out, well, how am I going to put this in a sentence? Because that's just confusing, or 2 sentences might even be more confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my who. And I'm going to say, well, actually, you know what I'll do? I'll say who is people. I'll just write these words down to get me started. When is election day? What they're voting, and where at a polling place. So now I have those words down. I know that I need. Now I just have to think about, well, how am I going to turn these words into a sentence? Because right now I just made a list. So I kind of talk myself through things out loud. So if I want to summarize it, I might say, people go to polling booths on election day so they can vote. That's a 1-sentence summary, and if you can't get 2 or 3, that's okay. But that might be a decent sentence to start with for your summary. So I'm going to go ahead and write that quick so I have something at least. And so I have that written down. People go to polling booths on election day to cast their vote. So please write that down in your notebook. And as I'm saying this, kids, like I said, you should be writing this stuff down too. You don't have to write the things on the Post-it note, but you could write them in your notebook. And then you can write in your book too, so you have that information there. But what I want you to notice specifically is, first of all, I said 2 or 3 sentences. I just get a little excited sometimes. 1 sentence is going to be fine for this paragraph because there's not that many sentences in there in the first place. So 1 sentence will be fine if that's all we come up with. The second thing I want you to notice is I wrote, people go to polling booths on election day to cast their votes. If you look at the first sentence, on election day, people vote in special places called polls. That's basically the summary of what you're reading. And we call that the topic sentence. So here's the thing, kids. I'm writing all these notes down and all this stuff. And I'm going to end this here pretty quick because I'm not sure exactly how to get you this information, if I'm going to be super honest with you. But these are the things I want you to know. 1, a summary is a short recap of what somebody wrote, a movie that you saw, a conversation someone had, just the main details. Usually those main details are who, what, where, and when. We don't often include why and how because why and how get to be too long. The main idea, the summary is usually presented in the first sentence of a paragraph, and we call it a topic sentence. And then our summary should look something like this. People go to polling booths on election day to cast their votes. If you get only this information out of this, you've watched the video, and all you do is write this sentence in your notebook, you are all set. I know this is a little confusing. I'm not super happy about the way it's being presented, but we are getting the information that we need. So I'm ending this one for now, and you can go ahead and I will see you at 12:30 or 12:50, depending on what group you're in for reading language arts, and we'll talk about some of this stuff there too. Thanks, kids. Bye.